Welcome, everyone. We're glad to see you, have you join us today. Welcome to Helping Loved Ones Divided by Politics. Real people, real conversations. I'm Mary Beth Stibbons, your host for today, and I'm so glad you're here. Today, we're going to reflect on how we can connect more meaningfully with the people we love, even when political and ideological divides challenge us. Now, if you're here because you're navigating a politically divided family, I want to extend an extra warm welcome to you. You're in the right place, and we hope today will offer some meaningful insights for you. Today we'll be learning from two real people, a real couple, Susie and Rick, who have graciously agreed to share their personal story with us. They will serve as our guides, helping us all reflect on how we can navigate political differences in our relationships. We're very grateful for their openness. As we move through this session together, let's remember we're here in the spirit of braver angels. Our goal isn't to change minds, but to stay curious, to listen deeply, and to understand. We're here to have conversations with goodwill, recognizing the shared humanity in all of us, even when it feels challenging. And we're also very fortunate to have Dr. Bill Doherty with us. Bill is one of the co-founders of Braver Angels and a professor of marriage and family therapy at the University of Minnesota. And he's the creator of most of our Braver Angels workshops. He's spent his career helping families navigate some of life's toughest challenges, and we're delighted to have him share his wisdom here today. Bill often reminds us it's important for our families and for our country that we at least try. There's no way out of this except moving forward together. Bill will be working with Susie and Rick as they share their story, helping all of us learn new ways to manage political differences while preserving those relationships that matter most to us. After their conversation, we'll hear from a Braver Angels reflecting team comprised of one red-leaning, one blue-leaning, and one purple-leaning Braver Angels member. They won't be offering advice, but they'll share what they've observed, learned, and appreciated, helping us all reflect on how to better understand and support one another in these important conversations. So without further ado, I'll turn things over to Bill with Susie and Rick.
All right. Well, good to see you again. We met, I think, 3 years ago.
Yep.
In this format, and really happy to be to seeing you again. And I recall then you'd been married for a long time, right? And now we add 3 years to that. So how long have you been married?
Let's see. Almost 30. It'll right? 29?
30. Yeah, it'll be 30 next year.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And you've got some sons, I recall, who are even more grown up than before.
26, 24, and 22.
Okay. All right. All right. So we're glad you volunteered to come back. And so I'd just like to start with, if you could each say what you hope to get out of our conversation.
You want to go?
You go first.
Okay. I feel as if I probably am more passionate about all of this political stuff and always want to engage in talking about it. Been very enthusiastic about the Democratic ticket after Joe Biden had stepped down, and thought that Rick would have shared my enthusiasm to talk about it. And that doesn't seem to be the case. And so that's been frustrating for me. And so I think that sums it up.
What are you hoping, well, we can do here?
Let's see. I know I'm not supposed to hope that he agrees with me.
Whatever you want to say. Yeah.
No, I would just love to be able to find ways to like, I guess I was just so surprised that, because I feel like a lot of us like we both went out, because in Colorado, we were actually both registered as independents. So we were able to both vote in either primary. And so we both had agreed that, you know, we were going to go and vote for Nikki Haley, because we both kind of felt like it was time to turn the page on that ticket. And then clearly she didn't win in Colorado or anywhere. And so I kind of assumed that we were both on the same page of the concept of turning the page and moving in a new direction. So when I found out that that wasn't the case, I was kind of taken aback and confused. So
It wasn't the case in what way?
that Kamala was not a viable option to move forward.
Okay.
And I felt like that didn't seem to resonate with Rick.
Okay, so I want to come back one more time. I'd like you to give me a sense or two about what you hope will come out at the end of our time. What would mean that we were successful?
Okay.
You can say it. You would
No.
vote for Kamala.
Hold on,
Yes.
Rick.
That's what
Susie.
you
No, in my
Susie,
heart, I would love for Rick to vote for Kamala, or
would you like at the end of our, ideally, the end of our, that Rick would have come around?
That Rick would, I know I'm not supposed to say this, but he would agree that it would be healthy for the Republican Party to move on.
From Donald Trump.
And that would be a healthy thing for our country.
Okay, for Donald, move on from Donald Trump. So let's
move on from Donald Trump. Yes,
okay, yeah,
that he could do his part to help us as a nation to move beyond it.
Okay.
All I was trying to, like, I'm confused that he doesn't agree with that sentiment.
Okay,
And
so I want to get him in right now. Okay,
yes.
So Rick, what do you hope to get out of our time here?
Harmony. Seriously, like, as you can see, she is more passionate about this. She does want to talk about it more. And so what do I want to get out of it is just continue to develop the techniques such that we can live in harmony together. And also I would just say, what I found very useful about Braver Angels is just an ability to be heard and create understanding even when you don't agree, right? So I would say my goals is that, right? Like I don't want to get in arguments with my wife, my friends, my children, you know, about this. I just don't. Yet I have my own opinions and position, and I want those respected. So that's how I would frame what I want out of this.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, so there was a period of time when you were, it sounds like you were closer together on where you think we should go. That's what you said, Susie. I want to make sure you
Would you agree with
right?
that?
That you were both going to vote for Haley. That's at least what Susie said.
Yeah.
So you were kind of together,
Mhm.
time to, you know, as you said, to move on from Biden, and then Haley was a better alternative to Trump. So in your relationship where you have had some political disagreements for some time, that was a moment of alignment. Am I getting that right?
Yes, and that was so exciting.
Yeah, for you it was really exciting. How were you feeling at that point, Rick?
Yeah, I felt good
Okay.
about that. Yeah, I felt
Okay. Okay.
yeah. I mean that was, and you know, like I think one of the things we do even now is we do try to seek out those things that we agree with when we, but that's another Braver Angels technique, like
Okay.
which has been useful to us over the years. So that was a moment of alignment and harmony between the two of us.
Yeah, yeah. And then I get, well, for you, Susie, when Haley dropped out, she wasn't an option anymore. You were, sounds like you were assuming that that your togetherness politically would continue, right? Biden was out, and you, since both of you had not voted for Trump in the primary, you were assuming you were assuming Rick was going to go for Harris at that point?
I did.
Okay.
In the
Hmm.
name, you know, with him understanding that like, this is a way out. Like, we have a new option. Because I knew that he was never going to vote for Biden. And
Okay.
that was fine with me. Like, I
Okay.
wasn't going to try to convince him otherwise.
Right.
But now that he had a new option, I was shocked that that wasn't the path he was going to choose to take.
Yeah. And so then some conflict started, or what happened? So from your point of view, Rick, what began to happen at that point?
She was expressing her profound disappointment in my choice. And by the way, to be clear, it wasn't so much that I had decided to vote for Trump. In fact, even as I sit here today, that's not the position I'm in. It's
Mhm.
that I'm not down with the Kamala train. You know what I mean? So it's and so you know, in these matters, again, she is more passionate about this and typically sort of wants me to change how I think or behave, right? And so yes, that changed. She was unhappy that I wasn't as you can tell from the conversation already, that I hadn't moved from our Nikki Haley moment of alignment to a new Kamala Harris moment of alignment.
Mhm.
So that's what happened. That's what's happening.
And I kind of feel like our alignment wasn't as much Nikki Haley as it was, we have a way to turn the page and
Mhm.
have one of the Republican Party at the time, like, to create an option. Like, I feel like while Rick says, he's not Republican because, he's libertarian or independent, more times than not, that'll be the party he'll lean toward, which is fine.
Mhm.
But I know that Trump-led Republican Party isn't necessarily what Rick leans toward. And so I had felt like we both were kind of thinking, well, I thought that, wow, like there's a way to, like, if Kamala can win decisively, maybe the Republicans will finally let go of this
Mhm.
trend. And maybe some of the Republicans who are, felt like the party has left them could maybe come back to the party and reform it in a way that looked more familiar to them.
Sure.
But that doesn't seem to resonate with Rick.
Well, so back to you then, Susie, just to be clear, you lean more blue, as we say in British,
Yeah.
right? And
She
Rick
doesn't
leans more
lean blue.
red.
She
Well,
is. Yeah.
whoa, Rick.
Was that necessary?
Probably not. Yeah.
Yeah, okay,
All right.
okay. So I get for you, Rick, you feel some resentment about kind of being put upon, right? And then it sounds like one of the things you do when put upon is you do little jabs back.
I think that's more than fair, as already demonstrated here.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. And I was being polite by saying little jabs. Okay.
Not lost on me either, Bill.
Yeah, so that might be worth thinking about because what do you think, Rick, are the effects of your jabs on
They
Susie?
escalate,
Yeah, yeah,
right? So that's the most common
yeah,
result.
right,
Yes.
right,
Yeah.
right. And how do you think she feels at that moment?
I'm sure she feels not understood. Um, yeah, I think I'll phrase her. You don't get it, right?
Well, that's not the feeling part. So, Susie, how do you feel
Yeah.
when he sends those jabs your way?
Disrespected.
Mhm.
I feel like there's always a, like, I don't know what the right way is to say it. I always feel like there's a sense that you feel as if I'm being so, like, misled, and how naive I am, and how, that you have so much more clarity than me. That I'm just kind of like a sheep that just,
Okay, so you feel kind of very much one down. And then Susie,
And
how
I
do you
get
think,
pissed.
and you get pissed, right, right. And then the escalation occurs, sure.
Yes.
And how do you think Rick feels with you strongly wanting him to change his mind about?
Yeah, very annoyed. And then I feel like sometimes even if there would have been agreement, it's just not even possible to even say it. And he'll just dig his heels in deeper because there's no way he's going to ever let me have any.
Yeah, okay. So let me back up a little bit. Annoyed, what's underneath, and Rick, I'm assuming that's correct. You feel annoyed. What else? What's under the annoyance? How else does he feel when you relate to him in the way that you sometimes do?
I know he's exhausted with it.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Can I offer something here
Yeah.
and see if it rounds? I'd like to offer disrespected,
Probably.
which is what you
Yeah.
would feel. Rick, is that right?
Yeah, I think that's right. Yeah, when she offered that word up, I was thinking the same thing. That's right.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, yeah. So take a breath, both of you, sit back, and to hear that when you get into these conversations, you both feel disrespected.
Yeah.
And what both of you being human beings, you're not at your best when feeling disrespected, right? You either escalate or jab more. I mean, you do the jabs, Rick, because you're not your MO is not to say you have to change your mind. Your MO is to defend yourself and send barbs back, right? And then Susie, your MO is just personalities. We all deal with these things differently. Is to plunge forward and see if you can muster one more great argument or one more outrageous thing that Trump does in your mind, right? Isn't this it now? Hasn't
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
right?
that's exactly how I feel.
Yeah, like is this like one more finally, okay?
Yeah.
Finally, cats and dogs.
What more evidence do you need?
Yeah, what more evidence? The man is crazy and bad for the country. And then Trump is, Trump, in the news, we're following these people every day. I mean, everything they say is in the news, right? And so if you're a Harris hater, there's plenty of stuff that you see every day. If you're a Trump hater, and I'm using that word loosely, but you really don't like these people, there's plenty of data. And if Rick then were doing what you're doing, so he would be bringing that stuff over and over. She didn't answer that question. You see how she slid out of that? Blah. It just all of it. And then you just sort of go spin down.
Yeah.
So Susie, as I say this, it must not be pleasant to hear. I mean, what's
I
going
feel like the only, way to navigate through this is just not even talking about it, which makes me sad because I know that that really doesn't seem to be like I don't know. I mean, it's one solution, but it's not a solution where I feel like I'm being authentically honest with who I am. So I get to be how I feel or share my thoughts with everyone around in the world, except the most important person in my life. And that to me feels like, wow, that's kind of a sad state of affairs.
Yeah. So it feels like the alternatives are to go stone silent, just nothing political, or see if you can marshal one last chance, and every day can be one last chance to get him to come around. So I can see where that's a hard place to be.
Right.
How about you? How do you resonate to what's the path forward?
You're asking me.
For her, so I'm
Oh,
asking for you. I mean, just on your
okay.
own. I mean, how do you?
Yeah. So,
You're both feeling disrespected. What's the path forward?
all right. Well, I guess I feel like I look at it and go, we just disagree on this, and there's no point in debating it.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, to what she just reflected on, I'm reflecting the other side, but I don't, doesn't necessarily make me feel anxious or sad. I'd rather just leave it be. Like it's
Yeah.
not likely going to change. This isn't a debate where she's suddenly going to come up with some point and I'm like, oh yeah, okay, now I see. Now I'm enlightened, right?
Yeah.
There's another thing though, which is to find the common things that we do agree on or the things that we could discuss and have a, positive discussion or positive enough, right? So that'd be the two things that I'd utilize. One being just a recognition that we disagree and we shouldn't actually try to get into debates about it, or pivot into the things that we agree on. And there are many things that we appear not to agree on, but we can have a really good discussion and sort of get to a place where it's a civil, harmonious discussion about. So I'm sort of like, let's get to those. You know what I mean?
Okay. Susie,
Yeah.
what's your reaction to that second alternative, the trying to find a way to talk better?
I guess I'm saddened and anxious by all of that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sad because I do feel like I feel like I'm not heard as to why I feel excited about a new option, like that doesn't resonate at all. And I'm anxious about the outcome of this election. Either way, I feel like there's going to be just a lot of like ugliness that I'm not looking forward to.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sick about the whole, like, if Kamala wins, it's rigged. If Trump wins, it's like,
Mm-hmm.
I just
Strict.
no, I'm not I don't see
So
that.
careful, Rick. You just finished your sentence for her. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So
If Trump wins, I don't feel like it has nothing to do with, like, I'm a person who, like, I accepted that he won the last time. Yes, I went out on the Women's March.
Susie, I want to stop you and bring you
Yeah.
back to the two of you.
Okay.
To
Yeah.
your,
Well, my point is that if he wins, I don't feel like there's going to be, I don't feel there's any compassion coming from my husband of, wow, like, I see that you're
Okay.
really disappointed. Like,
okay.
I feel like I just kind of am envisioning, like, even though he may not go out and vote for him, there's no sadness coming from him if he wins. Whereas for
Okay.
me, I feel like there would be a sadness.
Okay, great. Thank you for that. That was really, so what I'm getting from this part of a conversation is that in addition to kind of the more policy agreement and so on, and ability to agree to disagree and blah, 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 Susie, you're looking to be able to share your feelings about what's going on and have Rick hear those.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an additional thing for you to think about, Rick, in addition to having good agreements and disagreements about policy and politicians. Susie is hoping for you to be able to let her share her feelings about what's going on and not judge the feelings. I wanted to go back to you, Susie, and say, where you're on sharing your worries about the election, and it sounds like you're going to be worried no matter who.
Yeah, I really
right.
truly am, which is really a sad place to be.
Yeah, right. So your emotions in this are all over the place. um, and hopefully there could be a way, and we could talk about for you and you too. You got feelings too, right? You know, that you could both share those. The feeling that I'm suggesting is not worth sharing is a disappointment that Rick doesn't agree with you.
Right,
Okay, because that take that somewhere else.
right.
But if you share it with him, it kind of overloads the circuits.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah. And why do you agree? What makes sense about that?
Because that's the loop we're in.
Yeah, yeah,
So there's no sense in continually doing that same,
Yeah.
pattern. It's not moving us forward. It's not bringing us closer. It's just causing tension. So I
Yeah.
agree. If I can focus our discussion on like I just said, my sadness, my fear of the day after this election, like I'm not looking forward to that at all.
Right. No, I hear you on that. And I just want to make sure you're getting that distinct. It's not just that it doesn't work and it gets you into the loop. It's not healthy.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have adult kids. Okay. And they make life choices and so on. And occasionally they ask us for input. Okay. But a lot of times they don't, which is they're right. And sharing a feeling of disappointment in a choice that your kid
Yeah.
made is a big deal. I'm not saying you'd never do it, but it'd be a big deal. Okay. Whereas you might talk with each other and say, oh man, I hope that job works out. I'm not so sure, you know. So you have the feeling, but you ought to be, generally speaking, very reluctant to directly share it with your adult kid because it pushes into their boundaries. It creates, you have all this power, as a parent. And so I'm just saying the feeling of, gee, I wish Rick and we had this golden time. We
For
lost
2 days.
For 2 days, we lost it. And share that with your friends, right? But because Rick knows it, there's no reason nothing to be gained from sharing it again. Okay.
Right.
But being able, and if the two of you could work this out, maybe I can be helpful to be able to share your internal feelings and not because the disappointment is partly a judgment on him.
Right.
Okay. So just where you are.
Yeah.
And so, Rick, is that something worth aspiring to, or just what are your thoughts about being able to listen to her, just her feelings, if she lets go of a disappointment that you don't share them?
Yeah. Yeah. You mean just sort of like being able to understand and react to how she's feeling about something if it's not coded or surrounded by this sort of disappointment package.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's right. Is that
Yeah.
something you would aspire to?
Yeah. But aspire to feels strong to me. Being perfectly honest, it'd be more like the type of thing that I would do to create harmony between us, but aspire to, that's sort of strong for me, right? Like
Yeah, no, good. That's really honest. And that's that word. What I mean by that actually is it something you like to try?
Yeah. Yes.
Right.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it's not like it would be you're the big joy of your life that you aspired to,
Yes.
the language of emotion isn't, it's you're willing, you're able. I've seen you do it, but it's not your
right.
Not your favorite recreation.
Indeed.
Right.
Yes.
So thank you for clarifying that. But in a marriage, we all make adjustments, right? For the relationship, and it may be something we don't spontaneously need to do ourselves, but we're willing to because this is our mate here.
Yes.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this analogy about somebody being really disappointed and the other isn't. I've been thinking about sports teams, people who are like big fans of other teams, right? And they're playing each other, And somebody is like, yes,
Uh-huh.
like I'm in Minnesota, we never win championships. It would be like, yeah,
Uh-huh.
but maybe I'm married to like a Green Bay Packer fan. That's the big split here, you know.
Yeah.
And she's like crushed.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just, you know, this is the glory moment.
Yeah.
To be able to let both people talk about how they're feeling
Mhm.
without putting them down for it, or without saying you have to feel the same way I do. Now, I
Yeah.
realize that maybe
Yes.
a little trivializing because the national scene is much bigger. I mean, these are big consequences, but there's some similarity when people are rooting for different teams.
Just to share a little bit, we were in Michigan recently at a good friend of Susie and both of our friend, and it was sort of like well, it was a more rural part of the state, and there were a lot of
Mhm,
Trump signs.
mhm,
And we were out to dinner, and they were like, "Why are all these Trump signs?" You know what I mean? I don't understand. I don't get it, right?
mhm,
Uh,
mhm,
and I was the only non-Harris person amongst the group, which is common for me, I must say. Uh, and um, and I used that analogy, Bill. I said, think of it as tribes, two
mhm.
tribes, and you're just signaling what tribe you're in.
Yeah.
It's just that simple, really. That's like, but I could have said sports team too, right? It's the
Mhm.
same thing, right? That's all it is. You don't need to actually put too much more judgment on it than that. They're just signaling, an affiliation. That's all.
Yeah. So yes, and of course, every analogy has limitations, and so that's
Yeah,
what I said about the direction of the nation and that kind
yeah,
of thing. But
right.
but I brought it up around sort of recognizing that two people who love each other can feel quite differently.
Yeah.
So the the challenge would be for you, Susie, to say what you're worried about. I'm hearing that as a big piece of it for you is
It is.
is fear, right?
Yeah.
Right. Um, and um, and to be able to share your fears and to honestly share them linked to what you're worried about Trump might do if elected or not elected, right? I mean, so not sugarcoat it, okay? But to do so with these good boundaries where there's no hook at the end of saying, don't you see it
Hmm.
this way? And probably to not do it multiple times a day. I mean, just, to save it up. Okay, right. To save it up.
Yeah.
Uh, but for the point of just letting your mate here, your husband, kind of know where you are. See,
Yeah.
this is the downside of we're not going to talk. The big downside, one of the big downsides is if there's a lot of emotion, then there's a gulf. I think there were elections years ago where the stakes didn't feel so high and people weren't so worried. I don't know, Eisenhower, Stevenson, or something like that, where, I don't think a lot of people have big cauldrons of emotion. They preferred one or the other. And so some people just didn't talk about it, and that's fine. But
Right.
there's a lot of emotion going on in the country right now. And if it's possible to share it, it helps you feel connected. That would be the goal.
Yeah, I think you just hit it on the head. I just think there's just so much emotion like I mentioned, of the day after. And I know we're not going to it won't even be the day after. It's going to be whatever, a week after. Who knows how long it's going to take.
Yeah.
But I just feel like I just am exhausted about all of all the ugliness. I'm just so exhausted.
Yeah.
And I'm just not looking forward to the aftermath.
Sure.
And
Okay.
they're just like, ugh.
Yeah. So I wonder so we'll go back to you, Rick, and then maybe we can set up a little conversation here. So for Susie, I'm emphasizing, just as she was doing there, her fears, her worries,
Uh-huh.
and there wasn't any hook in what I was hearing. about you. You had agreed to it, that she was sort of demonstrating what I was talking about.
Uh-huh.
And so for you, it would be being sharing empathy. It would be like there's somebody, a dear friend of hers, she's fearful that her friend is going to get sicker or something like that. In other words, this is her feeling. Okay. And then Susie, the other thing, so I'm talking to both of you now, but Rick, at some point, I think would it be healthy and important for him to be able to say to what extent he shares the fears in common or doesn't. Okay. Just so he's visible in the conversation, he's not your therapist. I feel,
Yeah.
right. And if he were to say that he understands, he accepts that you feel this way and he can understand it or whatever,
Mhm.
and that he himself, maybe his level of fear is lower or whatever, you'd have to be willing to accept that.
Yeah.
Okay. And that you would not then get into an argument about whose feelings are more justified.
Right.
And then if one of you was tempted to go there, you would have an agreement. We've agreed we're not going to go into an argument about the facts that are backing up our fears.
I think that's brilliant, actually, because we did do a thing in Denver about the election with Braver Angels, and
Mhm.
I was curious. One of my questions was, what policies are you talking about, whatever. And so he was able to articulate that. And then I was like, of course, thinking like, wow, I didn't even like,
Mhm.
really, that's such a non-issue for me, you know what I mean? And so I think that what's interesting is that that's irrelevant. Like, I think what's more relevant, like you just mentioned, are the emotions
Mhm.
behind it, and to just focus more on those than the actual policy or this or that, because those are I think it was a Braver Angel. I can't remember what they had said. Like, when you start worrying about the facts, you've lost the whole, point of what we're how to bring yourselves together.
Right. Exactly.
You each bring your own set of facts, and that doesn't help anything.
Right. And this is about your relationship. Primarily, you're not public debating,
Yeah.
you're not campaigning against each other, in which you are going to argue about the facts.
Right.
And the argument about the facts hurts your relationship. So, so you're willing to give this a try here now?
Yeah,
Have
I
a
am.
conversation, and I can do some coaching. And so, Susie, I'd like you to lead with what you're worried and afraid about, and if you, in just your own way, Rick, could relate to what she's saying, in terms of empathy, and I can be a help to both of you, and then also just to say where you are in terms of, I don't know if there's something you have in common with where she is, but also where you might differ, and then for Susie, for you to relate to him and where he is on it. So you're both getting that from the other. Okay. Okay to try it?
Okay. So,
And so don't go on too long with your opener.
okay, I'll try to be very short.
Well, no, you have to be very short, but not 5 minutes, because what happens
Got
is the other person isn't sure what to relate to at that point.
Okay. So emotionally, I do have a lot of anxiety and fear about this election, doesn't, like, whoever wins, I think it's going to be very ugly afterwards. And I'm not looking forward to that at all. And in fact, I'm dreading it. And I'm not like feeling good about how this outcome is going to turn out, regardless of who wins. I feel like if Kamala wins, and that's why I kept thinking, like, I feel the only way if Kamala wins decisively, perhaps it could be a little easier, because then it can't be as rigged or whatever. And so that's why I'm like, oh, I just really hope that happens. And if Trump were to win, I'm just like, oh, I'm so exhausted. I just like the ugly language, the ugly behaviors. It was very refreshing to not have to have him in the news feed all the time, for a while. And I just feel like some of his, who knows what he's going to be able to do and not do. But I just feel like there's just they're not as, all the people who refuse to participate in his.
Don't go on too long, Susie.
Okay, sorry. The Republicans that were in his administration, they're saying, no, he should never get back in the Oval Office. I just feel like there aren't going to be guardrails like there were before if he were to get back reelected. And that worries and scares me a lot, that there's going to be surrounded by a lot of yes people. So that scares me if he wins, and it scares me if he loses, because I saw January 6th. I saw what he was able to, what happened as a result of people being so upset. And I just.
So, Susie, when you try to be briefer, you expand more.
Okay, I apologize.
So,
do you see what he has to put up with?
well,
This is
so
very hard.
It would be better to no. It's just your style. Okay.
I'm sorry.
He married you because of who you are.
know,
Okay.
I know.
I'm just saying, hold on. But I'm just saying in kind of high stakes conversations.
Okay.
Okay. And I'm going to give you a chance to start again. In high stakes conversations, okay, which this is, then it's best to bring a level of thought to it in terms of, or intentionality of, I'm going to deliver him the heart of how I'm feeling right now, and then I'm going to let him respond, and then I can expand, okay, rather than lay it all out, because Rick, you said a number of different things, and so try it again.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, like just reflecting on that, that was a whole lot of stuff. You're like, you want me to show empathy. I'm like, to what part, right?
Yeah, that's right. So,
All right. I'll try it. Here.
This is great. This is why we're
Take
talking. Yes. Edit tape. Nothing happened.
We're editing that part out.
Okay.
All right, I'll try again. I'm very anxious about the outcome of the election, regardless of who wins. And I feel if Kamala doesn't win decisively, it's going to be all about it being rigged. And I just feel like it could get very ugly. And if Trump wins, I just am just fearing there will be no guardrails, and I'm scared for what that might look like for the next 4 years.
Okay. So yeah, I heard that you're anxious about the election. I am too. And I think probably for the same reasons you are. I'm worried. I'm worried that there's been a lot of bad behavior exhibited by both sides, and that will continue. So I was gonna go into my own spawning thing, but I'm not going to.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. And so just try to relate, pick it up, Susie, and respond to him in terms of what he just said. Tell him what you heard him say.
Well, I heard, that you're also anxious for similar reasons.
Mhm.
And that's comforting to know that we share that, because I can feel like a whole lot of anxiety here in my heart I feel like I don't have it. I'm trying to work on, my control issues. Clearly, I have no control over this outcome of this election. And I just kind of have to go along on the ride, and I just don't know. I'm worried about what it's going to look like. And
I think it's, is it fair to say that your fear really is about Trump and what Trump will do in those two scenarios?
I think
You're not
it's going
afraid
to,
of
no,
Kamala winning and what she does. You're really afraid of Trump.
I am afraid of Trump. You're right. Win or lose, I'm worried about the behaviors that will come regardless of the outcome.
Yeah.
And I feel like,
Okay.
yeah,
So
yeah.
my fears are more broad. I'm afraid of Trump's antics, but I'm just as afraid of the Democrats' antics. Just so you know.
I know. I know.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm glad you did this last part. Okay, where you both identified, and you did a really nice job, Susie, of doing the 30 seconds. Okay, and then handing it over, right? Because if the goal is
Goodness for take twos.
yeah, but it's good if your goal is to be understood and have, care shown to you around something contentious, right? That's why I'm saying if you're talking to a friend or you're both talking about something else, it doesn't matter. You just talk, right? But around this, being kind of mindful, and then you related to her feelings on that, and you said what you share those. You said back, yeah, it's comforting to know he's afraid. And then I was sitting here saying, oh, okay, what needs to happen next? So that was the connection part. What needs to happen next is where you differ. Okay. And then you asked a really good clarifying question. It didn't seem like a gotcha question. You were saying either way, is it mostly about, Trump winning or Trump losing, right? It's about Trump. And then you said, yes, that was a really good clarifying. And then it gave you a chance, Rick, to say that your fears are broader. You both share some fears about Trump. You don't share fears about Harris. Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a difference.
Yes.
And then Susie, you just nodded and accepted that. You didn't, you didn't say, well, give me the evidence
Yeah.
because she's not
Litigate. We call that litigating here.
litigating.
Litigate.
Yeah, she's not 10% of the risk. And then you're off to the races. Okay. So not that you couldn't have that conversation at another time. With good boundaries, there's nothing you can't talk about. Okay.
Right.
Right. Because your next question, Susie, could be, tell me more specifically what you're afraid the Democrats will do. And you'll take that in. And then again, if you have good boundaries, you could say, well, I hear you on that. And some of that, yeah, I hadn't thought about some of that. And then here's a thought I have where the guardrails are, I don't know, just making that up.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that.
Would be there, I think, in a Harris administration. And then because it goes back to your word about the crowd. So then you're having a thoughtful conversation.
Yeah.
At each point, recognizing that your slant on these things is not identical.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was helpful advice because I think it would be a good conversation to have to let you expand more on your fears of the Democrats. Because I feel like you don't get that airtime when we talk.
That's right. Yeah.
And that, Susie, could be, and I'll just do an aside here, advantage in Braver Angels when we have these conversations. One of the things we can learn is about the fears that people who the other side have, because usually on our own side, those fears, we don't have them as much. That's why we're, supporting who we are, or we think that. The other thought I was having is in terms of just fear is like a 1 to 10 scale approaching this election. Okay. And Susie, yours, I won't give, yours is certainly above 5. Okay.
Yeah.
and we don't have to get into the numbers, but Rick's would be lower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's right.
And that can happen even if you're on the same side.
Yes.
Okay. Even if you were both, let's say, for Harris or both for Trump or whatever, just by personality, by disposition, by all kinds of things, some people have higher levels of worry and anxiety. And the other person with the same, even the identical opinions, and it gets to them more, and they feel more of a need to talk about it. And the other person, lower. Okay. And then they can fight about that. Okay, so you can argue about your red-blue leaning, but 2 blues or 2 reds who are married can have struggles. Can't you see?
Yeah.
Yeah.
or you're exaggerating. My goodness,
Or
our country is resilient. Well, it may
yeah,
not be anymore, right? With the same
yeah,
level of vigor, even though they both are voting for the same person.
Yeah.
yeah, almost like tapping into a sense of betrayal. Like we're on the same team,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
that's right. That's
Uh,
right. And you're blind to what
yeah.
is going on here. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So, well, great job. Great job. Um, in a moment, we're going to invite our red, blue, and purple reflectors on,
Okay.
and to just share what they have taken and learned
By,
from
by
our
the
time.
way, though, like your take two was the key, right?
Yeah,
Because it would have gone a very different way, I think,
yeah,
had we not stopped and
Refocus.
right.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Okay, that's good to know. So let me do
yeah,
a little more coaching then on that,
sure.
because none of us are on our game all the time. Okay. And
Well
and
said.
and you won't have me living with you, thank goodness for all of this. Okay. Just say, okay, take two.
Hey, I thought that was the agreement.
That
Yeah,
was the
hang on.
agreement.
I want to see the contract again.
That's
What
what we
else?
Yeah.
Why
signed
are
up
you doing
for.
this for free?
At least through the end of November.
That's right. Yes, I can fly out just so if Susie slips and shares,
Yeah.
so much of you could listen and then say, I kind of got overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Could you do it again? Give me the Reader's Digest version.
Well, I think right now
Yeah.
we have a way of, saying, can you please take a take two? Because that'll trigger,
Oh, nice. Okay, we do it take two. Okay.
Yeah.
So
And I
take
think
two.
that'll be really helpful.
Okay, nice. That's your
That's our shorthand now.
agreed upon
Yeah.
language. But you'd have to do it without criticism, okay? Right?
Yeah.
Just like
Right.
could we do it gentle? Could we do a take two? And then if Rick is hiding out and and not
Yeah.
he
Turtling.
doesn't
Yeah.
respond to your feeling,
Yeah.
then you can say, could you relate to how I'm feeling about it? And I don't want to get into trying to persuade you. Okay. I
Yeah.
need to get this off my chest because I am worried.
You know,
And if it's the last thing he did today, I can't believe he said that. And this is what it did for me emotionally, but you're not looking for him to agree with you about how outrageous thing. So you could check with
Yeah.
him. You could do a take two too, because you're both capable of. I've seen you do it. But just a reminder, but not a critical reminder. Could we do it?
Yeah, that's important. I think I need to be able to have like a reminder for you to show up sometimes
Yeah.
in that regard for me.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So tell me where you are, correct? And then that's you being him this time. So you're saying
Yeah.
where you are gently,
Right.
and with an invitation. And
Yeah.
then you have the right to ask him that because he says he wants to, as long as you're not trying to change his mind.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's the changing the dance you're doing.
Yeah. And another way to put that too is, and this is broadly useful, not even from our political discussions. There are times she wants to talk about something and I don't.
Yeah.
And I think this is a Braver Angels technique that we learned, I believe, where she asks permission
Yeah.
about something, right?
Yeah.
And it's very disarming
Mhm.
to me, right? Even if I'm like, I don't want to talk about this. Like,
Yeah.
it can be disarming and cause me to lean into it more than me just wanting to be like, I just don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. It's
Right.
respecting you. Remember when back to respect, it's
Yeah.
respecting you
Yeah.
as somebody who has the choice about whether to engage.
Right.
Just
Yeah.
as you're respecting her by really working at not sending her messages that she's not smart enough or not
Right.
balanced enough or any of that,
Yep.
because those are your defense. And I don't think
Yep.
that's how you really think about her, but that's your defense.
That's right. Exactly. It's defensive.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it happened to us just this morning, where and I said, I want to go get my coffee. And then I will talk
Yeah.
to you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the last thing then, because I'm glad we're doing some troubleshooting here, is how you start. And so
Uh-huh.
given this part of the conversation, Susie, it might be helpful for you to say if you need to get some stuff out, okay, about how
Mhm.
you're feeling, and to have Rick know that you're fearful and you're hurting at the moment, okay, to ask him if this is a good time or
Yeah.
can we talk? I'm finding myself really activated right now,
Mhm.
is it okay to talk about it?
Right.
And then, mostly you'll say yes, but sometimes you won't. But then you say, could we do that later? And,
Yeah.
and then you'd have to be okay with that.
Yeah.
So you have to be okay with that. But that's
Yeah.
the kind of, it's because these are tricky conversations. And so it can be helpful, not as a rule, but as sometimes to just say, is this okay to do now? And then you got your intentionality, your mindfulness in play.
Mhm.
Okay. Like,
Right.
okay, we're at our edge here. This is hard. This
Yeah.
could be hard, and let's bring our best self
Mhm.
to this. Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
Game day.
Yeah.
And then if one of you is off your game, which is inevitable,
Mhm.
then you give yourself permission to say, can we do a take two? What you
Yeah.
don't do is there you go again. And the other thing I highly recommend is don't invoke me. So what do you think Bill would say right now?
Wait,
Bill would not
I
be
can't wear that
impressed.
bracelet.
Yeah, their price of what do not do that. It rings in my ears back here in Minnesota if you use me. Okay. Well, good. I'm glad we Rick, you kind of pulled us into some additional conversation here before the reflectors come in. Okay, with that said, so I would now like to invite our reflecting team to come onto the screen and share with us. And there is Linda and Courtney and Xander. All right, all right. And they're going to be actually spotlighted. Da 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 da. And here we all are. Okay. So we're going to start with Linda. Just any words you would like to share?
Yes, yeah, I'm Linda Chamberlain. I live in Florida, and I am blue leaning. And I was so impressed with this entire session. Uh, One of the things that I really picked up from this was that since both of you are independents, which I found really interesting, that it seems like there's almost more challenge because there's a seed of hope in there that you can sway each other. When I work with clients,
Say
where
you're a therapist yourself. Yes.
I'm a therapist, yeah, I'm a psychologist as well. And what I find is that sometimes when somebody's really firmly entrenched in, being liberal and firmly entrenched in being conservative, then they sort of understand that they're not going to come together. But I think I was kind of I was very impressed actually, that there's so much hope for being able to come to some sort of an agreement, and for unity. That idea that, and I think you said, Bill, there's that sense of there's nothing you can't talk about. There's nothing we can't talk about, and that longing to agree. I really appreciated how devoted you are to being connected through this challenging time, and that certainly came out as you began to talk later in the interview. So clear how important this relationship is. I actually one of my big takeaways is you came up with a safe word. I hadn't thought about that idea, but take two is kind of like having a safe word. I like that idea. I'm gonna take that and put it to use. And what inspired me most was, I think, your dedication to really honoring your relationship above all. There's a reason you've been married as long as you have been. You've figured some things out. So, and so regardless of who's in the White House, I think that dedication to truly being empathetic and kind to each other came out really, really clearly. And I trust that will serve you well. It's kind of an inspiration to me to remember that above all. So I just want to say thank you for sharing this and helping. It helped me, and I'm sure it's going to help a lot of other people. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Xander.
Thank you, Bill. Well, I just want to also acknowledge that it was an honor to be able to be here, and I appreciate being invited to come and be a reflector for this session. I'm also a therapist. My name is Xander Keg. I am in Orlando, Florida. I'm red-leaning, and being able to be a fly on the wall in a couples counseling session is would be really fun. My wife is a marriage and family therapist, actually, and I'm like, what's going on in there? So, being able to see, I'm as a licensed clinical social worker, our training is very different, right? And to see how family therapy works with a couple in particular. And so the things that stood out to me were how important boundaries are, right? And setting up boundaries around specific ways that we're going to talk and specific topics that we're going to bring up, depending on what kind of conversation it is, right? Right. The more heated kind of or conflict-based conversations to make those boundaries tighter. I really liked that point. I'm in agreement with Linda, the take two. I'm like, that's brilliant, right? That you now have a cue that you can use. You both understand it. Nobody else has to know what you're saying. It's an inside thing now. So that's just wonderful for couples, right? We have so many things that are our little coded language. And so this is adding to that. And I just thought it was really beautiful, just your willingness to engage in this again, and the way that you listened to each other and looked at each other. You're smiling with each other. You're sitting very close to each other. That never changed, right? So that's all just really strong indicators of how important this is and how much you're dedicated and determined, to make this work. And so I'm glad that these skills, are something that you can practice now, because who knows what the next 4 years is going to bring. So yeah, I wish you all the best.
Okay.
Thank you.
And Courtney.
Hey, I'm Courtney. I'm in New York. I am not a therapist. I don't play one on TV either, but maybe I really appreciate your doing this. It's it gives me a lot of hope to see, because I know a lot of families are struggling in very similar ways. And you're very brave to do this and very generous. And of course, we love what you're doing, Bill. And yeah, I think it was good that y'all pointed out that you won't always have Bill with you. You might want to make a little paper doll Bill, put him on a popsicle stick, remember,
What would Bill do? Yeah.
I think you two are just adorable. So I'm going to be rooting for you forever. Like I love watching your dynamics together and how you worked through this. At the beginning, there was that little jabs moment, and I loved how immediately you came together and you were like cuddling, and you used humor to de-escalate. And I think it looks like that's probably a very positive habit that you've developed over the years, I would guess. So Susie, you're a woman after my own heart. I can relate to you so much on so many levels, especially the struggles you have with being concise, because it seems like you really want to be understood, and also your frustration with the conclusion that many of us come to not to talk about politics, because it's frustrating, because then there's always going to be that dividing line. You're always going to feel that you're not really known by those that you love most and want to be understood. And I think, with Bill today, the two of you kind of uncovered that a lot of what is underneath our political leanings and choices we make is fear. And you're starting to talk about, I think my favorite moment was when you said to Rick, it would be helpful for you, Rick, to expand on your fears of the Democratic side. And you said because he might not have had that airtime. I thought that was really lovely and generous. And it's so rare to hear people relating like that. There's so many moments. And also, Rick, I mean, I'm like you. I cannot talk to anybody about anything before coffee. Don't even try. Anyway, I just have the two of you have given me a lot of hope for the rest of us. So
Aw.
thank you for
Well,
doing that.
thank you guys.
Yeah, yeah.
And thank you, Bill, for letting us work. I mean, obviously we did this 3 years ago and it's still a work in progress.
That's right.
It's constant reminders of how to navigate through these challenging conversations.
Yeah, I
And-
think this
and a hope.
viral load of polarization keeps coming at us, right?
I
And
know.
and we need reinforcements or immunization, whatever, you know.
Yeah, I need my booster
multiple doses.
shot.
Yeah, booster shots. That's right. Because it's, and I know for me, and I imagine for our all of us on the screen, that it's a very hard time, and it's hard not to give in to outrage and fear, and it's hard not to, and it's hard to take in that people experience this time so differently. So Susie and Rick, why don't you say some words about what you're taking with you from our time?
I think that it is very helpful to hear that in these challenging conversations to be concise and not to overload. Less is more. So that's a biggie.
Mhm.
And to focus more on my feelings about the issue as opposed to the actual issue, the details and minutia of the issues.
Mhm.
And that perhaps I would feel more support and empathy or whatever, or compassion that I'm needing in the relationship. I'd be more successful in navigating in that path.
Mhm. Mhm. And Rick?
Yeah, I mean, clearly, I think the take two is a huge lever for us now. So thank you all for that gift today.
Yeah.
Actually, I think for my part, probably two things that I can improve on. So one is get her when she's still going to overload me. I know, right? And when she does, to stop her and get her to locate the feeling and try to bring that back rather than litigating a 10-part indictment, right?
So can I
Yeah.
switch a word? Invite her to,
Yeah.
rather than get her to.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, okay, good.
Right,
Thank
right,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, great. That's very good. Yes,
Yeah.
invite her to. Yeah, yes, absolutely. Let's see. So yeah, I think that's I think I had two things and I've already forgot the other one.
I know I kind of interrupted your train just to clean
That's
that
okay.
up a little bit. But
Yeah.
your own changes in addition to having something to say if you feel you're getting overloaded. How do you want to show up differently?
Yeah, me. So
You, Rick, yeah.
now that I remember,
The funny thing with Zoom, I knew I was looking at you.
Yeah.
But
The
you know I
second
was
thing,
looking at you. Yeah.
second thing is that you identified it right away. I like to jab, right? So
Yeah.
my defensive maneuver is, to jab back, right? And I think that, so I have a feeling that that's a little bit of my nature, and it'll be hard to just like not do it. So I at least need to do and recognize that I'm doing it, and
Mhm.
also maybe call myself out as I'm doing it.
Mhm.
To as a way to just bring a little bit of levity. What I find between the two of us is, and one of you said this, like we do use humor, both of us, and the tiniest bit of levity can actually
Does work.
it sort of works.
And with your jabs, I
yeah.
could literally say, do you need a take two?
Yeah.
So,
Yes.
And then, lovely. You're showing it now. I mean, you're very creative on this. And then, Rick, if you notice you just jabbed, you could say,
Yeah.
how did that jab work?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Did I land that jab?
Yeah, did I land? I could try better the next time. Yeah.
Okay.
So
Yes.
you're demonstrating how I mean, every couple has areas of strength and weakness. And if you didn't have these weaknesses, you'd have others. Okay.
Right.
And so it's a matter of how we learn to understand and navigate and live with some of these patterns you will have till death do you part. And the question is, how do you keep them from biting you too badly? Okay. Rather than getting rid of them. The other thing I want to say is that, about 10% of married couples in the United States are red-blue couples.
Yeah.
And many of them are struggling.
Yeah.
That's, I looked up the figures, that's over 6 million couples. So it's 10%, but over more than 6 million couples in this country are likely struggling. And others do as well, even as I said, when they agree with each other. So you coming today to share where you are and to be this open and honest and creative and even playful, I think is a wonderful lesson for millions of folks. And in those situations, for those of us who are trying to be of help, to be friends to people who are divided politically. So many, many thanks. And it was a great pleasure. I felt confident that because we had connected before, I wasn't sure where this would go exactly, but I felt like
It was fun because we were like, we had a really good day yesterday. I'm like, God, we really kind of need to figure out a way to have a good fight.
What are we going to fight about? Is what you said. We need something to fight about.
It takes like this. I'm like, oh yeah, that's it.
That's it. That's
It
it.
didn't take a long soul searching to find it.
Yes.
My comment back to you, Bill, is obviously we did this 3 years ago, and from time to time, Bravers Angels and others have come to us and like, oh, you're such a great example and such an inspiration. And we're always looking at each other going, we actually sort of suck at this most of the time, to be honest, right? So in many ways, that might be a message for all those red-blue couples. Like, don't expect that you're taught this technique and it's just all rainbows and unicorns. Like, it's work.
It's a work in progress.
But it does work. You know what I mean? The techniques do take the edge off and create more understanding. And so, but it's not all.
You shouldn't have said that. They're a miracle technique.
Sorry.
We're going to edit this out.
Yeah.
No, thank you for that. That's the realistic tone. And that's actually some of what we try to do in Brave Angels, just be real and realistic. And your take two is just beautiful on this. I think a lot of folks are, because it's non-judgmental. It just sort of, okay, let's try again. So
I would love to think that I had planned me being so wordy and expressive on my first take, but it was very genuine, and that was great. You stopped me, and it was good. I've learned a lot.
Great, wonderful. So thank you again, and thanks to our reflectors here and to all the people behind the scenes who helped us do this. So
good luck to everybody.
Yeah, and so Mary Beth, I think it's time for us to see your face again as we finish up.
Wow. Thank you all for joining us. And as we wrap up here, we're going to put a couple of links in chat. So there's ways to stay involved with Braver Angels. If you happen to be interested in being a participant in an event like this, there's a link where you can sign up. And Braver Angels offers many resources and opportunities for you to get involved. You can look for a local alliance chapter. You can sign up for another event, a workshop, debate. We also offer one-to-one conversations. We have book discussions, film discussions, and much more. So we invite you to get more involved with us. And with that, just thank you so much to Bill, Susie, Rick, Linda, Courtney, Xander, and a few tech folks behind the scene as well. Have a wonderful rest of the weekend.